Well, how are we doing?
I know, you tell me.
Busy.
Seems like a lot of lumber over there.
We haven't measured these much yet, have we?
I think they're 17.
Kind of tracking estimate what we're doing. I think we got
13.
13.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. This is the short one.
So this might get us just under 2,000 after this. We'll go see.
No, we're going to need, yeah, we're going to need.
Well, it's going
Well,
a
you
little
always
bit.
want to go at least 10% over.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's going to be, like, for example, this piece right here, it dries, probably going to break.
Okay.
It might not. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Glad you're here. Alright, so we're continuing on up at Bobcat Trail Road, making 1x4s out of Ponderosa Pine. So, if you've watched my channel, you know the first thing I've got to do, of course any mill's got to do, is get the log up on the deck. And then I'm going to kind of roll it around, look for the stress in the log, and then get the log positioned so that I'm comfortable with where it's at. I'm going to check the pith and try to make sure that the pith, which is the very, very center of the heart of the log, I want to make sure that that's centered from one end to the other on the mill deck. Once I'm sure that it's centered or very, very close to centered, then I can go ahead and start milling it down, and you can see there that I'm using the debarker once I get into the bark, but I pull it away when I'm out of the bark. That's just to keep the band from having to run into dirt, rocks, and things like that. So we get that first cap cut done, roll it up 90 degrees, and I've said this many times, so if you haven't watched my channel, it might be new to you, but I will almost always roll 90 degrees first because I want to get a good, solid, perpendicular opening faces. So first face, you get it open, second face, roll 90, then cut that cap off. That gives me a nice square corner right there that I can work with. From this point on, I don't really have to worry about how that log sits because I know it's going to sit flat on the deck and flat against the side supports. It's going to be a square cant by the time I get done. So back to the debarker, back to running down, taking a cap cut. We'll get this cap cut done, get it off the deck, and then decide, you know what, look, we're really not deep enough here. This log had quite a bit of taper, so let's take another cut. And at this point, we're taking what I call flitch cuts. And flitch cuts are going to have wane, which is a curved surface or bark, on one or both sides. So, of course, we're still cutting a round face on the far end, but you can see now I've got a nice opening face. So I'm going to go ahead, flip this up 90 again, and it's now square on all three flat sides. All I have to do is take the top off. And because I'm milling on the evens, I just need to get it to 1/8 of an inch under any number. It could be 9 7/8 or 10 7/8, doesn't matter, because that will drive me right to 7/8 of an inch on the deck, and that's what I'm looking for. My width needs to be 8 1/8 so that I can split it without splitting the pith. I'm going to go ahead and taking a flitch out. You can see that wane on either side. I also see some really nice blue stain in there. I love blue stain, it's beautiful stuff. So now I've got an 8 1/8 by something and 7/8 inch thick cant. All I've got to do is split it 4 and 4, and away we go. Since I'm cutting on the evens, which means I've set my simple set to 1 inch, and that's going to leave me a 7/8 inch thick board. That's intentional. The customer wants 3/4, so we go ahead and mill them to 7/8, and the reason for that is that it's going to dry approximately a 1/16 of an inch in thickness, and then they can plane it a little bit if they want to. They may leave it rough, but they might go ahead and plane it. So we've got plenty of room for it to shrink and then for them to plane it. Beautiful wood there. Look at that. That's gorgeous, isn't it? Now we're just taking off 1x4s, knocking them down, but I've got some flitches. So all those flitches that I cut from the start, I put out on the forks, and right there you notice I pulled my head back a little bit. I had started to have some problems with the hydraulics. If the mill was back where it should be working, it wasn't making a good contact. I'd have to pull it back, get to the point where my hydraulics work, and then get back to working. So we stack those flitches up, get them clamped down, and then for me, because I don't have a laser, I'm always kind of looking at it going, okay, I think if I start right here, I'll get it flat on the other end. And to be honest, I'm just not always right. And as you can see here, I'm going to be getting some wane near the end of these. So sometimes you can get away with that if they're really big and you know, you're going to cut more off anyway. In this case though, it wasn't good, so I went and I dropped another inch and then took another cut out of it. Good kindling right there. All right, so we get the top cut off. Now my cants are below 4 inches, and that's intentional. I milled it down to where I was below the 4-inch mark so that I could take these, edge the tops off, flip them over 180 degrees, and then mill them to 4 inches. So there we are, getting them milled down to 4 inches. That's gorgeous looking pine, isn't it? Okay, got that done. Now I just got to get these two off the deck. Now they're ready to go. And I've also lowered my loader forks all the way down to the ground to make it easier for the customer at this point. I leave them up when I've got a log or a large cant on the deck, and that's just a safety feature. If something happens, it's not going to work. Then I pull those two cants back onto my swing out bunks. I just want to make sure that I've got a good, flat, steady, solid surface for these cants to be sitting on. So you'll see me do that. Sometimes I move the log, or in this case, just move the two cants and bring them back. So we're going to get this one milled down, and then I'm going to go ahead and get another log loaded out. Now, one of the things you may notice is that my sawdust chute's really plugged up right there. I'm going to have to clean that out. It doesn't actually hurt for milling. It's not going to change how the saw cuts or anything like that. It's more of an irritant than anything. And I do find, you know, I love my LT40, but I do find that sawdust chute can get plugged up a lot. The more you mill, the more chances it's going to get plugged up. And when you're really trying to produce, you know, somewhere around that 300 board foot an hour range, well, guess what? You're making a lot of sawdust. Little chunks of bark or something can get caught in there, and you see me pull one out right there. That's just something that happens. So get that cleaned up. I also got my swing out bunks pulled back in. That's so that I don't damage the deck. I don't want to load a log with those swing out bunks out. So get this log loaded up. And, you know, hey, this is not a real big log, but I think I can probably get some 1x4s out of it. And we're really now past what the customer needed for 1x4. So I want you to bear that in mind as we go. But the log was kind of too far down on the far end, so with the toe board rollers up, I can just push it back. And you know, big logs, I got to use a magic hook, but smaller ones like this, I can just kind of push it back. And I'm kind of chuckling thinking, well, it's not that small a log, but really, folks, out here on the West Coast, even though I'm up on the dry side of the state, which, by the way, most of the state is dry, you know, Washington State, the Evergreen State, no. Out on 2/3 of the state, it's almost the Everground State. So, but anyway, we get that log moved back, and time to cut another cap cut. You'll notice my side supports are down a little bit. That's because this log's not that big. It's just barely big enough for me to sneak out a couple cans on it out of it. So I've got my side supports down, got my cap cut off. Now we're taking a flitch cut. I get that flitch cut off the deck, and then I'm going to roll this log. You can see some nice blue stain in there. I love that blue stain. I know a lot of guys don't. I do. My wife loves it. We love working with it. And I think it's going to make some really nice trim and batten boards for their Barndominium that they're building. All right, so we got it rolled up 90 degrees. Take a cap cut. And you can see side supports are up. So we are about 15 inches right there, maybe 14. And, you know, sometimes Mother Nature doesn't grow logs the way you want, so they might be wider, like egg-shaped, than you would expect. Now that's going to come into play here, and it's something that, you know, I actually hate to see this, and so you're going to see something that I really hate to see, but we ended up leaving it, and I'll explain that here in a minute. But meanwhile, get the cap cuts off, get the flitch cuts off, get it ready to flip. So we're still cutting out, we're getting some more flitch cuts off. And you're actually going to see the customer take some of these flitch cuts because they wanted some live edge shelving. So one of the things you're going to notice is that we don't actually put every flitch cut on the forks. And this is one of the things that I kind of pride myself in as a custom sawyer. You know, I'm only remote. But look at that blue stain right there. You know, if I see something like that, I'm going to make sure the customer's aware of it. Rather than just milling everything down, I'm going to make sure that they see that and they know, hey, this is a really nice piece of wood. And let them make the decision as to whether or not they're going to keep it or whether they want me to mill it into 1x4s. So you get that one, flip that off on the forks, flip this up 90 degrees. You'll notice I dropped my side supports almost all the way down. I don't drop them all the way down when I do this because I've actually had CANT shift on me. So I'm always overly cautious here. Get that cap cut off. And we're going to split this CANT. So you're going to see what I was talking about earlier in a little bit. But meanwhile, cut another flitch. Now, even though this piece of wood doesn't have wane hardly at all, except for down on this far end, it's still a flitch cut in my books. So kick it off, throw it on the forks, and we'll trim it down later. Now we're getting into some really nice pine right here. But one thing that is going to happen is this log had a lot more stress in it than it looked like when I loaded it up on the deck. Now that oval shape maybe could have given it away, but frankly I just didn't see it. And so I'm working this log down, trying to set it up into a CANT that I can split for the customer, and I split it right there. But something's going to happen right here at the end. Watch the CANT pop. Did you see that? That's what I call CANT pop. It lifted. That means that when I split this log, it had stress in it that it just relieved. Now that's really not a good thing. And normally if I see that, you can see it's pulling apart down here on this end. Normally when I see that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip it again, get those so that I get face bends instead, get everything ready to go, and then mill it down. Now in this case, we're past all of the 1x4s they really needed, and they decided, you know what, this stuff's not going to be used this long. You know, you're talking a pretty long log right here. You're 17 feet long. So at this point, they thought, you know what, we're going to cut these down shorter. I'm milling everything at nominal. Now, nominal means full dimension. Sometimes guys get confused by this. Dimensional lumber is what you buy in the store. So a dimensional 2x4 is going to be 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Nominal is 1 inch by 4 inches. Now I did mention earlier I'm milling on the evens, so I'm actually milling 7/8 of an inch thick, not a full 1 inch. However, I'm milling a full 4 inches wide. So that does mean that with these crowns and the fact that they're going to cut these down shorter for trim and that kind of stuff, they'll be able to put that on a table saw and take those crowns out, essentially joint them on a table saw. So we went ahead and left it, but it is something that I always, if I see that happening, I give the customer an option here. Do we just go ahead and mill it down and let it dry and then joint the wood afterwards, especially if we're going to cut it short? Or if you're going to leave it long, I should really flip it and give you face bends instead, because face bends you can nail down flat. In this case, they decided, let's just go ahead and leave it. And again, we're past the 2,000 linear feet of 1x4s that they needed. So one of the things you're also going to notice is that when I release the log clamp, these two are going to kind of move apart a little bit. You might have missed it there when that happened. So you know, that relieved some of that pressure, but they're definitely crowned. I really don't like that. But that's, you know, sometimes that's something that happens. You got to make a decision. Do I change course, do something different, put the face bends in, or leave it? And I always leave that up to my customers. I tell them what I think, let them make that decision. Another video will come out on Tuesday, and in that one we're going to finish off with just a few 1x4s, do some beams, and then I'm going to do something you've never seen me do before. So you're going to want to see that video. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate you being here, and if you like this video, hit that like button, smash that subscribe. It's free, why not, right? And do me a favor, share this out on Facebook or Reddit or somewhere else. It really helps the channel out. I greatly appreciate it. Y'all have a great day. The old Jarhead out.